Hey guys, today we're talking about media literacy and understanding the media in American culture. So let's start here with some questions. How do you know what you know? And where does this information come from? And who tells you everything you need to know? For most of us, the answer to those questions is popular media. We read it in a book, we watched it on the news, we saw it in a movie or a television show. And so we absorb information all the time from popular media. But one of the things that most people aren't aware of is that in the United States, there are five major corporations that control the vast majority of all United States media. So what that means is five companies is essentially controlling the information that we are offered. So these five corporations are Viacom, Disney, News Corporation, Time Warner, and Bertelsmann. Now, NBC is the sixth one that's coming up pretty quickly into this group, but it's interesting to see how these five companies control so much of the information that we have access to. So that raises some issues or some questions. How do you know what's true or what's not true? What problems would this pose if only five companies in the country decided what you should know about the world? And how do we sort of combat this and expand our horizons? There's some things that I want you to know about American media. The first one is media are constructions. All of the things that you watch or listen to or read or see are created by individuals. There is no universal truth floating out there that is somehow separate from people. Everything that we see and interact with is created by somebody. The second thing that I want you to be aware of is that audiences negotiate meaning as well. This is you. When you watch it, you might interpret something differently than somebody else. So understand that all people who interact with media are not going to interpret it identically. The third thing that I want you to know is that media have commercial implications. Media companies are a business and must make a profit. So when we're consuming this media, it's important to know the purpose or why it was created. And then the fourth thing that I just want you to be aware of is that media have social and political implications. Media conveys ideological messages about values, power, and authority. Media shapes our society. It shapes the way, the masses see the world, but it also shapes the way we see the world. And so it's just important to kind of be aware of all of those things. Now, this doesn't mean that, you should completely disconnect from the world and stop engaging in, media outlets. But there are some tools that I want you to have to really become media literate, to be able to sort of sift through everything out there and pick out the best parts and ask questions. So the first thing is I want you to evaluate everything. And I mean everything. The TV shows that you watch, the books that you read, the news that you read, your social media apps, all of it. Something that you can use is called the CRAP test, CRAP, and C stands for currency. Who paid, for this? Who, conducted this study? Who is benefiting from this? How is money involved? The second one is relevancy. Is this relevant to the topic at hand? A lot of times you'll see kind of red herring arguments. Maybe the topic at hand is, COVID, and you hear somebody say, well, X number of people die from car crashes every year. Well, that's not really relevant to what we're talking about. And yet in media, we see things like that pop up all the time. Also in relevancy, I want to talk about timeliness. Is this something that's applicable in this particular moment? And then the A stands for accuracy. Is the information supported by evidence? If it's medical advice, is it given by a doctor? If it's legal advice, is it given by a lawyer? If it's science advice, does it have, scientific sources and studies as, references that it can back up? Did the author cite credible sources? Is the information verifiable in other places? This is important, right? If you read something and you're like, I've never heard that before, and it feels different than everything I've seen before, go find out if it's verifiable in other places. And then the P stands for purpose. What is the purpose of this media? Is it meant to make you angry? Is it meant to be a call to action? Is it meant to sell you something? Is it meant to, affect the way that you see the world? So you can use the CRAP test to evaluate everything. That's currency, relevance, accuracy, and purpose. The next thing that I want you to do is fact check. Fact check everything, right? There's so much stuff shared in media, not just social media, but news media and television media that's completely inaccurate. If you just Google fact checkers, you'll find a whole bunch that pop up. Use more than one. If you have a favorite, that's okay. I like PolitiFact, but you can use whatever fact checker you want, and just see, like, hey, is this really on the up and up? Google it. It takes 5 seconds for you to just Google something, right? So a lot of times if this is the first time you've ever heard a story or a fact, Google it and you will, see all kinds of things about it if it's actually a verifiable and true news story. I heard something the other day that made complete logical sense, and I was like, wow, I never knew that. That makes so much sense. Obviously, because this seems so logical, it must be true. And before I shared it on social media, I Googled it, and it turns out that though it does seem really logical and did make a lot of sense, it wasn't actually true. So spend some time Googling. Get news from news sources in the first place. Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter, those are not news sources. Those are social media sites. And yet that's where most of us get our news on a daily basis. So find some trusted news sources that you like and get your news from those sources. You can check out in our Blackboard shell the media bias chart, or just Google media bias chart, and find some news sources that are not too left-leaning or not too right-leaning and are more fact-based than commentary-based. The Associated Press in the United States, it tends to be the most fact-based news source. It doesn't have a lot of commentary. It just reports exactly what happened in a situation. Learn to distinguish facts from opinions. A lot of times, things are written as an opinion piece and somebody runs with it like it's a fact, especially, during sort of this crazy time in our world. You really want to be able to figure out what is verifiable fact and then what is somebody's opinion. And then the last thing that I have here is to watch out for red flags. A lot of times people share like articles from The Onion as if they're news, and The Onion is obviously a satire site. So look for things like that. Is it satire? Does it make sense? Does it seem logical? If it does make sense and seem logical, can you verify it on Google? Is it posted on a site that's questionable? If somebody shares something and you click on the link and your computer pops up a box, it's like, oh, don't go to this page, right? Probably that should be a red flag for you. So just keep your antennas up and make sure that you are evaluating all of the media that you consume and process. If you have more questions about this, there are resources in Blackboard, and always, 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 please feel free to send me an email. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you again soon.